Okay, so let's walk through the addiction cycle. So, my joke here is don't tell the other sessions that this session's my favorite. Haha. I think everything else really hinges off of this, is my point. That as we look to understand the addiction cycle, everything else plays off of this. So, there's four things that we'll really be looking at today. And importantly, I would say there's two things in here that I think people miss the most. So I'll kind of be walking through this and highlighting what I think is most important here as we look at the addiction cycle. So the addiction cycle, effectively, let's start. We've got four stages down here. We've got the little dude sinking. Some people say he's rising up out of the water. Very optimistic. I'm going to go with sinking, drowning. So we've got clearly this addiction cycle here that's happening. So number one, and we'll cover everything. The work that we're going to do today kind of comes into this first bit, all right, up top. So, but first, what we're talking about in respect to acting out here happens in four phases, typically. Everybody's experience is slightly different. But number one, entertaining the idea of using, right? So acting out usually begins at fantasizing. Well, when does a thought become fantasizing? Preoccupation is one of my favorite words here. So if someone's becoming preoccupied and they're fantasizing, they've kind of had a thought. I can't control my thoughts, right? I can probably control your thoughts. Whatever you do, don't think about a slice of pepperoni pizza with 3 pepperonis on it, right? Good chance you're thinking about a pepperoni pizza, or at least a slice of it. So a thought, okay, there's a great book called Overcoming Unwanted Intrusive Thoughts, which we've got linked in the book section in the Circle community here. And they really go into effectively what is a thought. Well, it's random firings in your brain. And they even go into these intrusive, unwanted thoughts, talking about them oftentimes being contradictory to what the individual wants, thinks, or believes. So thoughts are tricky business, to be honest. And so instead, what we want to look at is, and what the demarcation line is. I've heard people say a thought turns into fantasizing at 3 seconds. Maybe, I don't know. I just don't know of any research. But once I'm turning into a fantasy land, I'm going to fantasy, I start fantasizing, I'm preoccupied. I mean, really, time is starting to go by. At this point, about 6 different chemicals are just firing in my brain at this fantasy stage. And so if porn is my preferred acting out behavior, I might be fantasizing about the type of porn. Or, ooh, I've got an opportunity tonight when my partner's going to be out with her friends, or whatever the case might be. And or if it's escorts, kind of the starting to get into thinking about what the opportunity is and when this opportunity might be, and fantasizing about different things in the past or in the future that are desired, right? So really can live in this fantasy world for quite some time. And so fueling the curiosity, right? It's a great way to put it. Where this breaks out from just a thought. A thought's certainly not fueling curiosity. Well, then, apparently there's a choice point. A lot of people at this choice point, before they dump into the cycle of fantasizing preoccupation, they'll say, I don't really feel like I have a choice. It just feels compulsive. Same thing here, right? Once I've gone into this fantasy state, does it feel like a choice? I don't know. A lot of people, it feels like a slip and slide. So I think sometimes progress is just being aware that there might be a choice point. And then it becomes, how do we turn that slip and slide and make it a little bit less slippery so that I become a bit more aware of my opportunities for consideration and thought. So as we get away from stage 1, we move into stage 2. So I've gone from fantasizing, preoccupation, and now we're looking at ritual. right? I'm engaging in the ritual. So if this is researching, or if this is the ritual of locking a door and putting a phone on sleep mode and getting a laptop, or ritual of messaging people or scouring online to find right? Whatever the ritual is, at this ritual stage, stage 2, there's another massive chemical dump that's happening in the brain. So what's fascinating is most people, over 50% that I've worked with, would say that stage 1, fantasizing, stage 2, ritual, the fantasizing, the build up, the ritual, engaging, I'm not acting out. Stage 3 is acting out. So before I've even acted out, just the build up and the fantasizing and the ritual and the thinking about it and the planning and preparing and all of this, that this is actually the highest high or the greatest relief. Right. So if you think about it from that perspective, my life is stressful and overwhelming. I'm really having a difficult time feeling safe to be me. Well, when I go into this place, all that's gone for a bit. So for many people, stage 3 of the using or acting out almost feels like at this point, I might as well. That's how many people describe it. Right. So stage 3, the acting out, many people have this idea that's really kind of the end-all be-all, which is understandable. But I think most people miss this fantasizing ritual piece. After the acting out, well, now we have the aftermath. And this is very often described as despair, guilt, shame, aftermath. And what's unique about the aftermath is I can kind of stay in that for a long time. I could stay in that for a short time, but if it feels uncomfortable or painful, I could certainly relieve myself of that pain or discomfort by going back into stage 1, fantasizing, preoccupation, etc. I might just feel like dirt for a week and then find relief by going back into here. So it's not bang, bang, right? But I can kind of live for decades even in this cycle. So that's the cycle that we're talking about when we talk about it. Is it addiction? All right, another question for another day. Bottom line is, to go back to the Babs. Am I doing something to feel better or less worse? Are there negative consequences? Have I set a boundary then? And I violate that boundary. I cannot hold my boundary. Okay. And then number 4 can kind of trump everything. Is there a lack of transparency? So even if I disagree that it's unhealthy, even if I disagree that I'm engaging in this pattern, but everybody does this. So yeah, it feels better, but everybody does it. What's the big deal? There's no negative consequences. It's a normal, healthy behavior. And so I don't set any boundaries. Okay, fine. But if I do all that, but I can't be transparent, I've got to hide this pattern of behavior from my partner, right? I don't talk about it with my friends at all, right? This is something I don't want people to know. So that's something that we want to understand here as well. But that is our cycle of addiction or problematic behavior. I love that phrase, problematic behavior pattern, right? Maybe it's an addiction. Maybe I'm just abusing it, a pattern of behavior to feel better or less worse. But it's certainly, we know when something is problematic. I always say it's just something with tension. If it's bringing tension, we know it's problematic. So here's the 4 questions that we really want to answer. Is number 1, this whole graphic, what we're looking at is one scenario. So this is one scenario. So I want you to answer the question for yourself. What is the most problematic scenario, most common for me? What's the scenario that most commonly throughout my life I've turned to as a way of escaping, numbing, avoiding? I was bored, what have you. Work travel, middle of the day, surprise boredom, surprise downtime are probably some of the most common. Late at night when everybody else has gone to sleep. These are probably the most common that I've heard throughout my career. So in those scenarios, you might have 3, 5, but understand what they are. Each of the next 3 questions might be very different. the answers to these questions might be very different for every scenario. You might even have multiple answers in each scenario. So let's just take late at night, everyone's gone to bed. That's my scenario where I act out the most. Okay, that's what we're working with. So that's our number to answer to number one. Number two is this red circle, which says discomfort, craving, normal sensations and feelings arise. This is what we're going to call trigger. Sometimes I'm up late at night, everyone's asleep, and I have some popcorn, and then I go to bed. No big deal. Some nights I don't do that. Some nights I end up turning on my laptop and looking at porn and going down that path, and then deleting everything and hiding it, etc. So some nights I act out, some nights I don't. Well, the trigger here, this red circle, is question number two. What's the trigger? What sets things in motion on the nights where I act out? Number three is the need. So when we look at the need, trying to understand the need, this is the big one. The need, number three, this is where I say, to me, I think sobriety is cheap. Somebody can be sober, not acting out, but if they have a need that's coming up for them, this need has to be relieved. If we can't meet the need, but I stop acting out, okay, great. But there's still an unmet need floating around inside of me, probably unrecognized, right? So to me, this is why understanding ultimately what's going on inside of me, what the needs are that are happening for me, are way more important than sobriety. Sobriety can actually be very destructive and damaging. There's some great research where abstinence minus agency equals depression, increased depression and increased thoughts of self-harm. So we really want to understand this. The need. What's the need that's coming up for me? And then ultimately at this choice point, this is our intervention. Okay, how are we going to intervene? If we don't want to dump into this cycle late at night, how do we intervene? All right, so and then if we can choose to move with an intervention that lands us in a healthier direction, right, we get this healthy response. You could even go harm reduction. I just want to land in a less destructive place. All right, so scenario number one, I'm up late at night, everyone's asleep. Some nights I eat popcorn and go to bed. Well, on other nights, there's a trigger for me. What's that trigger where now I'm craving and I'm wanting to move in the direction of acting out? A great example. This is where number one, I said there were two things that people most often miss. Number one, most often missed here is what this trigger actually is. Okay. I'm always going to fight for what emotion or emotions are bringing with it tension, emotional pain, or discomfort. All right, pain feels like a lot. I love to go at tension. All right, what tension is coming up for me here? Well, I was just bored. Oh, I just do this. It's what I do. This time of day, this day of the week, it's just kind of my pattern. And so I really like to look here for what emotion or emotions. Now, if I'm feeling really stressed out and inadequate, that I can't get everything done at home, I can't get everything done at work, my kids, I can't be at everything. I'm not the best investor. My yard is the worst yard in the neighborhood. I've put on some weight. Right. So now I'm going to start to feel, man, I've got all of this inadequacy that's coming up for me. Now, this is everyday life for me. So I could maybe something kind of spiked it and it's at this acuity level all of a sudden for me. I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to do something here. Or maybe I'm not even noticing it, right? Maybe it's more chronic emotional tension. This is just the soup that I'm in every day. Every day I feel like this. Well, after a while, it doesn't feel like a big deal, right? So understanding what emotional tension, if it's an emotional boogeyman, a really tough one, abandonment, loneliness, right? Whatever that is for you, or go around that feelings wheel again in the exercises. Maybe you got 15, 20, I've seen 30 emotions come up for someone. All right, well, on their own, I can take them, but 30 of them together, that's kind of what I would call an aggregate chronic stress, or there's just this mountain on top of me, right? So what is that? Most people don't identify it. But if it's inadequacy, we now have the formation of a need. What's the need? Well, if I'm feeling discomfort tied to inadequacy, notice, I'm not vilifying the emotion. We don't want to whittle ourselves into a sociopath, live a life where I can't feel emotions. The issue here is not inadequacy. I'm inadequate on the golf course once every 10 years when I play, and I think it's funny, right? It's a beautiful walk. I enjoy the friends. I think it's hilarious how terrible I am. I'm fine being inadequate there. But there's other areas in my life where inadequacy brings with it tension, pain, and discomfort. So understanding inadequacy is not the problem, right? The issue here, the trigger, is why does inadequacy in this environment at this time related to these items bring with it such tension? Okay? So the goal is I can feel all the feelings. I can feel all the emotions. That's okay. But understanding why they bring with it such tension. Why do they get so spicy sometimes? Well, now the need is super simple. Relief. If I feel this pressure coming down with a certain emotion today, I just need relief. That's very simple. Right? I often like to say that everybody gets distracted with problematic sexual behavior. People get distracted by the naked bodies, more or less. But if you think about it from this framework, we have an individual who's experiencing either chronic or acute tension tied to an emotion or several emotions, very likely. A need has now come to the surface for relief. I feel inadequate. I want relief. And so I seek out validation. And so I go and I message people online and they validate me. Or financial transactions online where I pay people to validate me. Very safe in the sense that I know what I'm getting because I'm paying for it, like a gallon of milk. All right, so this is where many different messaging platforms and OnlyFans and things like that can become problematic, is not because I'm falling in love with this OnlyFans person or whatever the case might be, or even this real life interaction, but it's the relief from this inadequacy that I feel. I feel validated, I feel seen, I feel heard, and there's this massive relief for me for a moment, okay? So that's where I kind of like the framework that I like to touch on with respect to need. Now, again, if the emotion is bringing with it pain or discomfort in the same scenario, remember I said a scenario can have many different triggers. Well, let's say tonight I'm just exhausted. I don't feel inadequate. I'm killing it, doing great. I'm just exhausted. I can't go to sleep. I just stay up watching YouTube rabbit holes and I can't go to bed. So I'm exhausted night after night. All right. Well, what is that? There could be a lot of things going on there. Okay. But if exhaustion is creating discomfort or tension for me, well, the need for relief or whatever the need might be, well, that's going to be very different than inadequacy, right? So, could be very different. So that's kind of where we're starting. Number one, what's your scenario? Number two, what's your trigger in that scenario? The emotion that's bringing with it discomfort. And again, this is the spot that most people miss. So now they're trying to answer a question that's not being asked. They're trying to go to the gym. They're trying to do a bunch of other stuff. They're trying to, I don't know what. Why are you doing it? Well, so I don't act out. Well, who cares? What's the need? Why were you doing it in the first place? Let's make sense of it. We only have two options. Either I do things for no reason or I do things for a valid reason. And human beings, generally, we do things for a valid reason. right? If I don't know why I engaged in such destructive, problematic behavior patterns and hurt those that I love and care about so much in my life, if I don't have a valid reason to make sense of this pattern, I don't know, I guess I just destroy the people I care about for no reason. It's impossible for me to ever feel okay about me because I just did this thing to the people I love and care about. It's also terrifying because I don't really know where I'm going to go, and at times. And so that's where we see self-sabotage so much. Because I'm scared how far I might go. So I'll just blow it up. And if I blow it up, it's a controlled demolition, right? But I really can't build back trust in my family or my relationship or trust in myself if I don't have an understanding as to how I got here. The valid reason. Not a good reason. We're not saying it's good, but understanding the validity. I like to use the analogy, if we've got 10 people that we're making dinner for and we ruin the lasagna, we need to understand how we ruined the lasagna. Not so we can feel better about it. Say, oh, it's okay. You know, the cheese was moldy. We're not, we wouldn't feel better about that. We still have 10 people that we have to feed. So we just need to be able to pull together an understanding so that we can still meet the need, feed those 10 people. And if we don't figure out what failed in the first place, we're not going to be able to do that. So just the valid reason is what we're looking for, the need ultimately. And then number 4, finding an intervention to meet the need. This is the second place that most people fail, that I've seen in my experience, is they fail to identify what's really going on for them here. And then when they do intervene, I've heard this called a million different things, buffers, right? Just do something. So I'll go to the gym, I'll take a walk, cold shower, whatever. The problem with those interventions are if I'm feeling inadequate and I go to the gym, right? I'm the weakest guy, fattest guy in the gym. So now all of a sudden, I'm feeling more inadequate. I'm like, why? But I thought going to the gym was going to help me get off of porn. All right. So really intervening in a way that meets the need. What's the need? Well, the need's going to be typically relief from whatever emotional tension is coming up for me. Don't vilify the emotion. The emotion's not the problem. It's why does that emotion bring with it pain or discomfort or tension today? And being able to relieve that tension, meet that need with our intervention. All right. The last thing I'll say about intervention. So intervention's your number 4. And so this is your work, right? The work here is, okay, what's a scenario? What's my trigger? What is the need that's coming up for me? And what are my interventions? Okay. Now, a lot of people will get all of that right. And then when the time comes to use the interventions, it's tough to do. They can't do it. They did the homework. They've got it written out. They're ready to go. Call this the beginnings of your relapse prevention plan. But then when the rubber meets the road, it all falls apart. And oftentimes here is where people can go very self-critical. What's wrong with me? I knew I couldn't do it, etc. What's typically happening is once I've gone into this triggered space, I've kind of entered what we'll call an altered mental state. All right, it's like an AMS. So this AMS is going to be where I've gone from my limbic system into my amygdala. So we've crossed the prefrontal cortex wall. We've gone from reasoning back here into that fight or flight brain, if you will. Okay, not a very rational brain. So one thing is sometimes, number 4, our intervention, our choice point here, where we're choosing between healthy or dumping into the acting out cycle, which will deliver. It will deliver relief, right? Acting out is not a problem. Acting out is a solution. The consequences post-fact are absolutely a problem, all right? So wanting to be able to get work the interventions from our reasoning brain, the limbic system in front. How do you do that? Well, you got to figure out what works for you. But very commonly, it's kind of logic exercises. Count from 100 to 0 by sevens: 100, 93, 86, 79, 72, 65, right? Multiply two-digit numbers together: 12 times 18. I'm not 16, carry the one, right? I'm like really trying. So this is good for anxiety. This is good for a couple different things, but it kind of gets us back out here. I've had some people try some really fun, interesting, unique logic exercises that worked for them. I'll give you examples. Crossword puzzles, chess puzzles, if you like. There's apps where you can do just chess puzzles. Wordle, the New York Times stuff. Microsoft Flight Simulator, if you like that. It kind of like gets you going into a certain space. But gaming absolutely taps into a part of your brain where logic, I could imagine like Tetris or, but even like modern gaming puts you in a part of your brain. I know someone who would use online restaurant reviews, and they'd wait until they were triggered to write restaurant reviews online. And then a great one was someone who would argue with ChatGPT about art history. I always share that one. So what works for you? Totally up to you. I would say, though, with your interventions, think about the choice paradox. The more options I have, the less likely I am to choose. Right? So keeping that list short for now, and there is no failure here, right? There is no losing. There's only learning. So what are your biggest scenarios? What are the triggers, all the triggers in those scenarios? What is the need that's coming up for you? Is it relief from the discomfort with that emotion? Is it something else? And what's your intervention that's going to land you at a less destructive or healthy response? That's the addiction cycle. And now we will move on to defense mechanisms. Great job.